Hey, thanks for joining us again on the MeduCast. And today we're another episode of the Alphamedic, and we've got a really cool show for you guys today. One of the things we got is a gentleman named Matthew Curran who's launched this fantastic platform, new version of social media, ultimately that'll help us connect and build off experience. I know we've seen these sites before where it's just bashing people for making mistakes, but I need you to come up with a whole new version, mentality, new paradigm of this, because it's pretty fantastic. It blinds a lot of the information, so it's really just a true learning experience, and that's ultimately the goal. I mean, we've all sat around after a call before where you come on shift and the people coming on, oh, I had this tough call, let me tell you about it, and that's all this is about. Is harnessing that little bit of excitement and a little bit of learning out of it, and just making it a little bit more formal. Plus, he's blown this up to not just us in the transport community, but he's blown it up in all other niches all over the world. So it's pretty fantastic. So, all right, guys, well, let's get to, let me introduce you to Matthew Curran. Matthew, from Convene, tell us a little about yourself real quick. Watch these people listen to you.
That's right. So, so I'm how you and I met. I'll get to that, but I'll give you a little history about myself. I'm a retired Marine Corps pilot. I was in the Marine Corps, flew the CH-46 Echo, flew the V-22 Osprey. Big training background while I was in the Marine Corps. I was a flight school instructor. Not only that, I taught crew resource management in the Marine Corps. I was a crew resource management instructor, and then I was what was called a weapons tactics instructor in the Marine Corps. So I lived a life of training with that. And so I know your listeners all know, I mean, crew resource management is now becoming a big thing in the first responder world. But totally. When I meet and all that is after I
but you did say that you flew Ospreys?
I did, and I flew Ospreys.
How did you keep all the phone numbers that you were getting in your wallet all the time? Or were you already using cell phones by then?
No, when I first started flying, that's when I got my first cell phone. So, you just kind of, put it in, but it was like a flip phone, So
right. Well, of course, you're like, excuse me, I got to call the Osprey. I got to rev it up. I mean, seriously, I don't know how you dealt with it. So, your wife has got to be just obviously a trophy winner.
Yeah, she's a good woman, but often she has to deal with my big head. So,
well, it is what it is.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, how did we meet?
How did we meet? So, for you guys out there, I was a first responder. I was an air medical pilot. So I actually came over to work with you in Oklahoma. I'm from North Carolina. I was flying for Wake Forest Baptist Air Care here, and I came and worked with you. I can't remember which base we were at, Chickasha or somewhere.
Chickasha, Oklahoma.
That's right. So that's how we met. And let me tell you an interesting story about how we met. A lot of your listeners know you and know your background. So here I am. I'm in Chickasha, and I'm working with, Charles. And I think that first day, I mean, we had like 3 calls. It was back to back to back. But you and I hit it off right away because, both being athletes, I played college baseball, you played college baseball, and then the volleyball that you play, And so we were sitting there talking, but it was after our 3rd call. Well, we did 3 calls, and I could not for the life of me figure out how this 6'4" guy was getting in the helicopter right behind me in the EC-130. And I'm thinking, this guy's the tallest guy. Normally the short person sits over there, right? It took me till we got back, and it was about 4 a.m. in the morning. And I'm sitting there, and I watch you sit down at your desk, and, you take your legs off. And I'm like, I had no idea, dude. I like really, I mean, I couldn't tell. You had a flight suit on. You walk in, everything's good. I didn't know.
I was taking them off behind you. That's why I usually sit back there, so the pilot can't tell me, not to take my legs off. And then all of a sudden they're not, secured appropriately, and it gets a mucky area.
Yeah, that's right. But I couldn't figure it out. I had no idea. I remember thinking that, and I'm like, how is this guy? He's so tall, and there's no space back there. That's a small space. Yeah. And there you go. That's how we met.
That's right.
It took me a whole shift to figure things out.
Well, I would like to keep you on your toes because, I don't have any. So that's but don't you have a button over there for that?
Let's see if I can find it. Yeah. Oh, not that one.
Oh, that's not the right one, man.
Yeah.
You jerk.
There you go.
There we go.
All
Okay.
right, got a button over there.
Very cool, man. Yeah, and that was yeah. You mentioned about how we connected, and that was kind of the thing is, I was revving up my business at the time, my the education specialist, and you were building, I believe, wasn't it called Tech 3? Was that the original?
Yeah, the original version was Tech 3. It was an older version. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And then you were building that up. So this was 2013. And so, right, we were still fledgling and obviously friendship, but then
yeah.
in where we were with our businesses. And so it's been a fun ride. Everybody with, working with Matt, he's been very tolerant of my busy schedule. But what I do, yeah, what I do appreciate is that, he hasn't cut me loose, and he's always told me that he believed in me and he wanted me to be a part of this. So, really excited to be a part of Convene, which is you can see in the back, Convene Communities. The community is essentially a group of people that have shared interest and knowledge and training and how we can get better as individuals, as professionals in those communities. And so I'm gonna let Matthew here talk a good bit about it. But it was just really great because that was when we first met. And that was when our businesses were starting to go, and it's just been a really, really cool thing. So number one, thank you for sticking with me, and I promise to do some good work for you. So tell us about Convene.
So I'll tell you a little bit about the history of Convene. And like I was saying earlier, I teach crew resource management. So I teach decision making, and I really talk about how we make decisions. And a lot of that goes back, and the story, a lot of that goes back to July 9th, 2001. And when I was in the Marine Corps, I lost one of my best friends. And when I lost one of my best friends, basically he normally flew with me, but he didn't fly with me this particular night. We were on a training mission, and he flew in the helicopter behind me. They made a 12-second human error right behind me. So, over time, that's what I talk about. I teach decision making, situational awareness, team communication. So you and I have run in the same circle a lot. I've spoken at a lot of conferences that you've been speaking at, and we always run into each other, and that friendship like you're talking about. But so what ended up happening, where Convene came from, is we did have Tech 3. And that's an application at the time that really was based off scenario-based training. Okay. Convene is based off scenario-based training, and it's how we train. It's how you train your people. You put them in scenarios. A lot of times your scenarios are based off your real life calls, things that you've run. And
Right.
you're basically saying, hey, if you were in this situation, how are you going to handle it? Right. And then people share how they would handle it. And that's so important because it's not an absolute, right? It's
Right.
based situationally. I have 650 plus, 650 plus flights carrying patients. So I sat there and listened to you guys and what y'all did. And it's also situational dependent, and how
Right.
you handle that situation, how y'all diagnose the situation. Well, a lot of times when you're diagnosing the situation, it's based off of your experience,
Yeah.
and that's what you're trying to put people in. Well, that's what Tech 3 was. That's what Convene is. Okay. Convene is, and we changed the name of it. We started, we call it Convene Communities. And why do we call it Convene Communities? Because I would go speak at all these conferences, and people would come up to me after I would get done speaking, and I'm talking about first responder stuff. I'm talking about how to be a flight paramedic, a flight nurse, team communication, career resource management, all those different things. And people would come up to me afterwards and they would say, hey, Matt, what you were talking to me is not just about being a first responder. It's about my marriage. It's about parenting. It's about, you name it. They would talk about, all the different things that it was. And so I went back, got my master's degree in counseling because that's one of my passions. And we built Convene Communities because it's not just about being a first responder. Although I'm passionate about that. I think that's one of the best communities that we have, but it's also about all the other communities that we have and that are growing. So
That's cool. That's very cool, man. And then it's so cool to take it from something that is a small niche. We talked before. It's like, and I've had people ask when I would tell other people a little bit about it. I was like, well, is it social media? Is it this? Is it that? I'm like, well, it's like, it's like, well, my little area is just like this small niche, and they're like, well, that's not really big. And I'm like, yeah, but everybody does something.
yeah.
Everybody usually does a lot of things. And if they're passionate about any of those things, then that could be a niche. So it's unlimited. yes, if you put a drop of water into an ocean, I mean, it's, a
Yeah.
limitless ocean, but what is an ocean but a multitude of drops, right? And so it's made up of all the parts, and I think it's a great idea.
Also, let's talk about community, right? Well, let's talk about, you know this, and I know this, having both been a part of the first responder community. You still are, and now I'm a pilot for a NASCAR team, so that's even better. But it's a community.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing you're already married, because that would require probably another wallet. Yeah.
That's right. But so I'm living the dream. I hit the lottery flying for Team Penske is who I fly for. But it's I love doing what I do. But let's back on first responder. It's a community. If you're a first responder, you're doing it because you have a passion to help others. You
Right.
know, but you also have a lot of responsibilities, and you need to learn, and you need to do your job properly. But it's a community that we can grow. And with inside that community, you as a trainer, other trainers can, it's not only a community social based platform, which it is, but there's other aspects to it. You have the grouping feature. And so what I've tried to do with the grouping feature is bring all the goodness in of all other social media, right? And combine it in one spot. So you can have your own group with your training, and people can communicate in that, but also a county or a larger organization, they can have their own group in that. And then you can have unlimited subgroups. So a county can have the main group, and every station or can have their own group. So there's a lot of goodness in that, and it's used as a communication tool. And then it builds down into sharing experiences and knowledge in the experience, so that it's a training application. So
That's great. So, and that's perfect transition, because we talked a little bit about abstract, the ideas of it, and then now you've given a good quick overview that this could be that the grouping allows a county EMS service or a county fire service, or a minister that wants to bring in young folks that want to learn how to become a minister and do that. I mean, anything. And they could be in their own little group and then learn their own little experiences. So walk me through. I'm brand new to this.
okay.
Let's do first responder. Let me walk. What are my first steps to get into the system, and what can I expect? And then, also these people are also be wondering about cost. So let's talk about some of that stuff as we go through. So give me the the how to.
Yeah, that's perfect. So let me talk about getting into it. So getting into it, you can go straight to convenecommunities.com, or they can come to your website or your link, or get in touch with you, and you'll send them a link to go straight into the first responder community. So that's important. If you're listening to this, go straight to Charles. He'll send you the link, or eventually I think you're going to have links on your website. Where they can click and go straight in. So that's the way you want to come in. And that's going to take you straight into the first responder community. Remember, there's a lot of communities, but go straight in the first responder community. It's free. So it's free to go in and join as a member. It's free to create public groups, and it's free to create public experience. Now, the most important thing is that we want anybody and everybody to come in and write experiences. If you have an experience, it's good for people to see the experience. It's good for people to learn from each other. Now, what happens with that free experience is we haven't said this yet, but you're the community leader. You're in charge of the first responders. When you submit it, it goes to Charles, and Charles will look at it, or I will look at it because I'm the overall site admin. We'll just make sure that there's nothing inappropriate within that, in that experience, and then we'll approve it. So now anybody can see that. That's one. So you can get on first responder experiences, and you have free experiences already in there that people can see, and there'll be other free experiences. Then there's
So I could go in right now and create an account, and then start my, just put up my first experience, and it walks you through all the process.
exactly. So on
Cool.
convenecommunities.com, and on the left menu, you'll see a getting started. And this kind of important. You'll see a getting started tab. Make sure to go through the getting started, because there is a little bit of learning curve, than this. It's not like going and putting a post on Facebook or something like that, that we're all used to. There's a process to it, but I have training for all that process in the getting started tab. Okay.
Good to know.
We're men. We like to jump in. And a friend of mine who started, this gentleman who started auctioneers, never thought I'd have an auctioneers community, but he jumped in the other day. He created his first experience. He called me up and he said, "Hey, Matt, there's a little bit of a learning curve in this." And I said, hey, Jason, did you go through the getting started? He's like, no. And I was like, go through the getting started.
Right.
Go through the getting
F
started.
the instructions, right? We don't need those.
Yeah, forget those. There's no need. I'm a man. I don't need that.
Right. Right.
Good for me. So he did that, and he called me back after he had created 4 other experience, and he's like, this is easy. And I'm like, go through the getting started, bro. Good job.
Yeah.
So real good guy. That community's taking off, which is cool. Okay, so back, I digress. So yeah, anybody can get in for free. Okay, you go out now. This is one of the things I was always amazed with Air Medical. So we would go out, we would run calls, and Oklahoma. When you were flying there, how many bases were part of the same program?
1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, depending.
So how many medical crew did you think you had total with that?
Which is about 8 or 10 per base, so about 50.
Okay, about 50. So what would happen is you and somebody else, you'd fly the night shift, and then the next morning or 24-hour shift. I can't remember how y'all did. Everybody does it differently, but y'all would fly your shift, and then we might go on a tough call, right? And so I sit there and I'm doing my paperwork. It takes me a couple minutes to do. Y'all are doing your paperwork. It takes you 5 hours to do. And
yeah, rub it in, dude. Thanks.
That's right. That's right. But y'all are debriefing the whole time, right? You're talking about this is what we did. You're debriefing. You're talking about it. And let's say it was a call that there's some good points from. The crew the next day would come in and y'all do a turnover and you do like kind of a quick debrief with them, right? And then you walk away. But I cannot tell you out of those 650 flights that I did, how many of those were calls that were shareable learning experiences. And how if you just had a platform to maybe put that out there amongst your 50 people, not all of them, some of them are routine, but there's some of them that are so good and such good learning points. So instead of just debriefing with your crew and the crew that just checked on, maybe you write up an experience and you hit a button and everybody in your unit can see it and everybody can learn from it and interact on it. So that's kind of conceptually how Convene is set up for that.
Well, it's interesting because because people will say right now, the argument we're already doing that. We already do that at our meetings. We go over, a call or people say, people already put stuff on Facebook. It's like, my argument to that is like, yeah, but how well is that working? I mean, because what's happening is it comes at somebody's, for whatever reason in this field as an educator, I've discovered that we're terrified of being wrong. Yeah. We're terrified of having failure. And I think that failure is the doorway that that allows us to get better. And this is a great platform because it prevents, it takes away that ill feeling.
Yeah. So let me throw that out to you 2 ways. So first, I'll just simply answer. When you go in and go through an experience or one of your experiences, when your students or your people are going through one of your experiences, when they're answering the question, they're answering the question. So it's not like being on Facebook where you put something out there and you make a comment and say, well, I'd handle it this way. Well, I don't like your answer. So what am I going to do? I'm going to throw a jab back at you. So when you're inside the Convene experience, you're answering a question. Right. And that's the beautiful thing is that I'm answering a question. And a lot of times it's based off my experience. And these are open-ended questions. They're not yes, no questions. There's how, who, what, when, where, why. Well, The beautiful thing is that I don't know when I go in and I get done answering the questions, then I see everybody else's answers at that point. I don't know it's you. It's anonymous. Right. So what that does is that opens up another conversation and open and honest conversation. So it's anonymous and I'm reading how everybody would handle it or how they would handle it in an experience that they've had. So there's a lot of communication, and that's the best thing about it is I'm not reading your Facebook answer and throwing a jab at you because I disagree with you. I don't know it was you. And guess what? Right. I don't see those before I answer my questions. So I don't see the answers. So that's a beautiful thing. Now I want to touch on one thing you said because it's so important. So in the Marine Corps, and I don't know what y'all call it in first responder or different places, but so we used to do the same thing, debriefs, right? And we would debrief after every mission. We go out and run a mission, then we debrief. But we called them murder boards. Y'all call them murder boards?
No, not usually.
Okay, because that's what they turn into, right?
or at least not any of the places that I've been. I've been 3 or 4 big places throughout the country. Now, well, let me take it back. Hold on a second. Let me backtrack. They do call like at hospitals when you're looking at the people who died in the hospital from care. They call it M&M. Yeah, it's morbidity and mortality conference and like that. So yeah, maybe it is a damn murder board. My bad.
Well, see, here's the thing, man. So when you go up and you're doing chart reviews and you're doing all of those different things, I worked at one place in Iowa for a long time, and I loved these people, and I loved that. It was just wonderful crews. It was probably about the same time I was worked out in Oklahoma, but I was working with this one paramedic, and it seemed like a routine call. And they were doing a lot of that. They were doing chart reviews where you would come up and you would stand in front of everybody, the top people, the medical board. And when they would do these, they would go in and the chart reviews would turn into a murder board. And so this paramedic, he came out and he walks over to the 130 and he basically leans over in the 130 like that and he puts his head down. And I'm like, bro, what are you doing? He goes, I'm not looking forward to this chart review. And I was like, what do you mean? That was a routine call. He's like, yeah, that's the ones they destroy us on. So the point that I'm making, because of the way the philosophy was at this one particular place on how they were doing chart reviews and how people were having to stand up and defend their decision making, it was affecting medical care because they were going through this process of thinking about, are we doing the right thing? Are we doing? And so they were making decisions based off of how they were going to get chart reviewed and what the things they were going to go through.
Yeah. Wow.
And
Yeah, that's powerful.
it is.
That will affect you. I mean,
It will.
and then how effective is it? From a standpoint of getting the clinician a little bit more education or a little or fine tuning, their decision making in a safe and comfortable and non, attacking type of role. Wouldn't that be so much better than getting out there blasting somebody, especially routine? Why is that happening? That's a whole nother thing.
Well, it is, but it's so important because it's the hard ones. It's the thing, but it's good when you learn the process. That's one of the things I got to speak about in the debriefing process. It's so effective when you do it the right way. When you learn through it, not every decision is perfect, right?
Right.
We can learn and we can share our decisions, our decision making process, so we do the right thing the next time and we don't make those particular mistakes. And that's just so important. And that's why the anonymity piece within Convene is incredibly important. So people come in there and they answer open and honest. And I'm not looking at it going, well, Charles, he's an idiot, and I throw a jab at you back in
Right.
the Facebook group. And it's now we're kind of arguing back and forth, and then it just dies and it disappears 2 days later. This never disappear. I don't have
Right. Right. That's good. Well, and that makes sense. You're saying you're trying to sell it that it's safe, and somebody could come back and say, well, people could still get on there and be malicious. It's like, okay, fine. If you go through the whole process of getting the information on the front end of a experience, and then you're given the questions that basically like, hey, what would you do in this case? These are the 3 things that, what would you do here? What would you do here? What would you do there? And then you get through all that process, and now you're at the point where you're looking at everybody else's. If you get all that far deep and you start being malicious to people, and if it's the first responders, I'm taking you out. That's just ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, because there's nothing else there that gives, credence to a political agenda or nurse versus medic or, anything that people can polarize. There's nothing there. It's anonymous. So it bothers me.
We have a politics community, believe it or not. And that's been one of the biggest surprises because we've all seen politics on Facebook and it gets brutal.
Right.
If you go do a politics experience within Convene, it's not that way. People are answering the questions. That's really how it is. It's amazing. Wow. I was shocked at that there was people weren't attacking each other. People were just giving their thoughts and why. And you can actually learn something. You learn why people think the way that they do. So
that's the greatest thing because it's like, too much about politics is like, well, crap, I don't know about that, or I don't know what happened here or there. And then you learn about it there. That'd be great, man. I haven't looked into that one, but if I go there and I look and I find something to go search, well, now I have real data to support an argument or a position that I feel. That's great, dude. And the fact that it's ideal. It's kind. It's real conversations, not
Yes.
wrapped around emotion or hatred.
It's pretty cool. Somebody wrote an experience about net neutrality. I don't know if you know what net neutrality is, but I didn't know at the time. And
Right.
and it's totally affects Convene. It's everything about online stuff and what's going on. All right, so
Yeah.
I digress. Let me get back to also your question. You asked me about the cost. I there's been times in my life where I didn't have a ton of money to throw at things, right? I've also been out and taught many rural counties who their training budget is nothing, right?
Right.
So I want Convene to be, and I'll talk about the two different things. I'm going to talk about real quick the private and the premier. I want Convene to be something that everybody can afford. Everybody across the board. That's the most important thing to me. So private groups. So let's take a county, wherever, whatever county that is. I live in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Let's take Forsyth County or any of the surrounding counties. They can come in and create a private group. And what that means is that only their people can be in that group. You either invite them or they request to join. So like if you created a county or a private group and then Matthew Curran comes and joins and you're like, who's this dude? You just deny me, right? Same functionality, same ability to make as many subgroups as you want, same ability to make as many syllabi as you want. You can make as many experience as you want, but it's contained within your own private group. So your own county. And so you could say Forsyth County EMS, and they could put every unit out there can have their own private group, right? Or their own group. Okay. Get that $9.99 a month. You tell me what other application out there can a whole county train for $120 a year?
$10 a month, 120 a year.
$10 a month, $120 a year.
Let me do some research.
I do
Do
some research.
you have a community for that? For search for that?
Yeah, that's right. So my point is that I've been to these rural counties. I've been to some counties and they don't have the training budget out there to do it. And so I want the goodness is that people get on here. So only the training officer or the person, that's the only person in the county that is paying for that. And then you house everybody within. So if you're a league, a sports league or anything like that, again, you can use it for that. All right. So
So I love. Okay, so just want to make sure that's completely clear. Is the fact that if I run an EMS service with 15 trucks, all I have to do is pay $10 once a month, and then everybody under me in my system that I put in our group with, if I want to put the EMTs in a subgroup and the paramedics in another subgroup and have a syllabi for EMT recertification in the EMT group and the paramedic group have a syllabi for, which is just a collection of experiences, then everything is kind of, grouped.
yeah,
And all for just $10. Like not individuals have to pay. It's just the
yes,
one person.
just to that one person to have that private control. And so
That's
remember,
crazy.
everybody can join for free and members can join private groups for free. You just have to be accepted in to that group or you have to be invited to that group. So there, I think that's, there's nothing out there like that is, and let me explain. It is built to meet everything that y'all need within, and you and I have
Oh yeah. Say more about that. Yeah. What does that mean?
you have had a lot of input on this, and so it and one of the Cherokee Regional Medical Center is using it as their system, and so one of the things that we built in that is you can do multiple choice tests within the experiences. You can set the minimum score. You can take surveys, and then after all of that, there's reporting for both of them, and then you can create a certified or a certificate for the classes. So you're able to go in there and it's customizable. So you can put, this is one contact hour, one continuing education hour, whatever the information you need to put in, you can customize it. So it says that, and so it can count as continuing education. So that's extremely important. It meets the needs, and we're going to continue working through you. We're going to continue to, make that better as well.
That's great. That's great. That's perfect, dude. Well, what else? I think we've wrapped up the whole thing. It's basically a fantastic new, I don't even want to call it social media. It's a platform to, maybe it is. I'll let you answer that in a second. But I think that it's a platform that brings people together in a safe, supportive environment to share experiences. But that's just the main piece. It can explode out into allowing somebody, an educator, a chief, a leader of some sort, to purchase for $10 a month the ability to create their own groups, many as they want, as many scenarios or the experiences as they want, which are scenarios.
Yeah, exactly.
And the fact that this thing is, it gives you one experience gives you a little bit of background information. It gives you then like the information you need to answer the questions. It gives you the questions. You think about it, type them in, write it up, and then submit it. And then anonymously you see everybody else's answers, and then you can then kind of compare, like, okay, well, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. I now know what to go look up, or oh, I'm on top of the game. I got everybody beat. And then that's just, if you have it, then cool. Then you know that piece, but a lot of other people probably need to know it or relearn it. Don't forget that even though we learn something, everything we do in critical care and in probably anything technical or anything difficult, information degrades. So
Yeah.
we need to relearn.
Well, and yeah, just because you've been a paramedic or you've been in the field for 30 years, you may have the latest and greatest, or you may have how you're setting your ways. But guess what? Things change. That's one of the
Yep.
things is I watched over my 5 years, 8 months of being an air medical pilot, is how much things change on y'all. And so, yeah, you may have 30 years of experience, but that new basic, or that new EMT, or that new critical care paramedic or whatever, he might have the latest book smart that's actually the way you should do it. So you can learn from each other. And that's the key.
That's awesome.
One last thing that I'll touch on is, if you're an
Yeah.
educator like you can sell your content through Convene, and set up your own courses, set your own prices, it's called a Premier Group, and that's only $30 a month, but you're able to set up your own, your own training website within the community and sell to, guess what? Everybody that's in Convene first responders is what? First responder, right? Whatever they are. So you have a ready audience. Okay. So I'll throw that in there. That's kind of a different topic, and we can talk about that later. But those are the different 3 ways that you can be involved: free, public, and premier.
That's great. That's great. And I mean, I personally think it's a fantastic product. Otherwise, I wouldn't have let you drag me through and trying to, while I'm fighting to bite at the bit. I don't know, but no, it's been fun to watch the progress of it being developed. That was really cool. So the place where we're at now is, like you said, I mean, if it has all the main stuff that educators in medicine need. It's got the survey, or not survey. Well, it does have a survey, but it has the instrument after the testing instrument. So like we have the test after, we have the survey and the certificate.
Yeah.
Certificates can be, of course, made specific to whatever the certificate folks who accredit it, want on there. So it's pretty fantastic. And so good work, dude. And I'm excited to continue on with it.
Yeah, so I'm excited to really, first responders. It's a passion of mine. I love being around people who do what you do, and what that are out there trying to make a difference. And that, the last thing that I'll say, and this is the last, is it is so important to me that this site makes a difference to people. And that's really what it's all about. If we can bring people together, make a difference in people's lives, impact people's lives, that's what it's all about. And I couldn't be more excited than to have you as a part of it. I've hounded you. I've sent you ultimatums. You in, you out, what's going on. But you know what? We weren't ready until now to take off and run. And I appreciate everything that you've done for me throughout this process, and the advice you've given. We've actually added, some of the stuff and to what we're doing because off of your advice. And I even asked you to be on my Convene Communities Advisory Board. Did I make the right decision?
Yeah, well, the application is still out, so you can always deny or revoke. But yeah, I hope I don't let you down, dude. It's an exciting thing. So I appreciate you joining us today. And we'll be in touch, and probably I'd love to bring Matt back at some point soon to do crew resource management chat. So this is me formally asking you that I didn't ask you before we did pre-production. I'd love to have you to come on and do some crew resource management talks. I have a buddy of mine that's getting his doctorate in it, and I bet you guys would pair well.
Oh yeah, I think we would. Last thing I'll say is thanks for having me on. First, thanks for letting me share it. But and you'll have this free code, and it'll be on the site. But we'll give everybody 6 months free if they just want to jump on and
Oh, wow.
be a part of this, growing it. Whether you're just a county or whoever, a unit, and 6 months free. You'll have the code. They can contact you for that code, and then we'll just grow it. I'd love to bring more people involved into it, and we're looking for other community leaders for other communities. So if you have some ideas, a wife, a husband that's not a first responder, come on, we're ready.
Sweet. That's 6 months. Wow. It's not like a month. And then we're going to start getting your money. It's like you get a full trial of this whole thing. And if you don't like it, you just cancel.
That's right.
Wow. That's impressive. Okay. Well, cool. Well, Matthew, thanks, brother. We'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.